Welcome back to Behind the Play. My name is Alex Adams, and I am joined by the fan pregame host and Sportsnet's own Ailish Forfar. Thanks so much for taking the time and doing this. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, so it's really cool to have you on the show. And how are things? What's it like just hosting a weekly show like day in and day out?
Yeah, well, first of all, happy to be here. Always happy to jump on podcasts and chat about career, life, sports, because I feel like that's a good opportunity to get to know the people that you see and hear from all the time. So happy to do it. And in terms of the show, it's really fun because every day is completely different. Sometimes some days we're NBA focused, NHL focused, golf coming up in the summer, tennis. The Olympics was really fun. Of course, summer that we just passed. So I really like the variety that we get with the fan pregame. It's basically whatever's coming up next on the network. So I think it allows us to kind of have a different storyline every single day instead of more of a specific focused dialogue. So I enjoy that ever changing. Certainly, the trade deadline of the NHL, you never know what's coming. It was a really fun couple weeks, and so looking forward to seeing how all the major sports leagues kind of shake out here as the playoffs come, and then baseball season around the corner. So, I really do enjoy the variety of our show on the fan pregame.
Do you feel like you're working 24/7, just like following every single sport all at once?
I actually feel like I'm working a little less than I was when I was on the morning show. So the morning show, in terms of being 24/7, I'm working the same amount everybody, but in terms of being dialed in. So for example, we're 6 to 7, sometimes 7:30, and then we do the 590 Leafs games on the radio. So, during the week we might have three shows that are just an hour, and then we might have two nights that are all the way till 11 p.m. So every day is certainly different, but in terms of just being able to log off after, I do really enjoy that perk of going home and then deciding if you do want to watch a
Mhm.
game or you want to do something different. When I was on the morning show
Yep.
hosting the 3 hour Fan 590 morning show, you were like a prisoner to the game in a sense, in a really great way. Like I loved being able to interact with the morning show listeners, but you didn't get the option to be like, tonight I might want to go see family, go out for dinner. It's like you have to watch the Leafs, the Raptors, the Blue Jays, the NFL, and you need to go to bed and get up and be the first voice. So I do think with the 6 p.m. show, I do have a full day to like curate what we're going to talk about topics,
Mhm.
chat with our producer and my other co-host Justin, and you get to kind of follow the stories throughout the day. But when you're on the morning show, you are the first voice, so you can't take any nights off. So I do think with the 6 p.m., there's pros and cons. I do think the pro is, you get a little bit more opportunity to like unplug if you really want to.
I I wanted to ask you a little bit about your career because you have a pretty unique career path, and obviously you're a high level athlete as well. Maybe talk about just, playing hockey at a high level, and then what kind of drew you to sports journalism as well.
Yeah, so I was a hockey player my whole life growing up. Probably started skating when I was like 3. I had an older brother, so I just wanted to be like him. I played boys AAA growing up. Was in a very small town north of Toronto called Sutton.
Hmm.
And so I grew up in a real small area and just was on the ice and playing every sport, kind of how it is in a small town, playing everything that my parents could push us into. And I really enjoyed that. So, sports have really shaped who I was as an athlete and had the opportunity to go to NCAA Division One school at Dartmouth College. And that was my career path. Honestly, both my parents were teachers, and I thought I wanted to be a teacher or an educator. And they definitely pushed higher education on my brother and I. Went to an Ivy League school. I went to a
Yep.
private school in Toronto for high school at Bishop Strawn, and so education was really important to me. But it wasn't until my sophomore year at Dartmouth where I had a redshirt season. So I had hip surgery, and it was like season ending. So it was the first opportunity where I wasn't playing the sport I loved. I was still on the team, but I wasn't on the ice with the girls every day. And I was feeling honestly like a little, it was a big like pivot point for me because I wanted to be as involved with the team as possible, but I was feeling pretty like sad and lonely that I wasn't on the
Mhm.
ice. So at that point, this was about 2013, sport media hadn't really become a thing that I was focused on. And I just said to the girls, like, maybe I'll just run the social media this year, or I'll learn about what it's like to be the video operations team, which was small staff. So during that season, I started doing the social media. I started trying to help tell the players' stories. because, back then there's no TikTok, there's just
Nope.
Instagram had just started. So we weren't really like building a fan base, but we had Twitter. So I was like, I'm going to go on Twitter and I'll live tweet the games. And I really enjoyed just the storytelling that you could do as a player's voice, but as I guess a professional in a sense for the school. And then I also started video editing or video coding with the player development section. So basically, two men, hands on deck here. So I'm watching the live game of our Dartmouth women's team, and I'm like starting to learn how to code. So shot, zone entry, and I'm learning the behind the
Mm.
scenes. We never learned any of this as a player. You're just playing. And then, helping the coaches with some of the videos. So they're like, hey, you know what? Why don't you cut all the power plays and tell us what you're seeing? So it was a really cool opportunity to see. There's like four different examples of what sport media is all in one season. And at that point, I was like, maybe I could see myself being a behind the scenes or in front of the camera or being more involved with sports. So the rest of my NCAA career, I finished that out. And the perk about redshirting is if you do it in the United States, you get to bring that 1 year of eligibility back to Canada. So when I was approaching graduation, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And one of my former coaches who coached me in high school and my midget and junior years also coached at Toronto Metropolitan University. So he reached out to me and said, hey, I know you have a year of eligibility. Like, would you want to play more hockey? And I was like, definitely. I don't know what I want to do. And so Ryerson at the time, and now called Toronto Metropolitan University, had like state of the art sport media program, which a lot of people now have graduated from, and is quite popular. It was the second year that it was around, and
Wow.
he's like, we could help get you in. You could play for our team, and you could take the sport media program. So it really worked out that this is all happenstance. Like if I hadn't got injured and I hadn't decided that maybe I liked storytelling of the athletes and being behind the scenes, I probably would have graduated and maybe been a teacher, gone back to my private school and coached and taught. So it was a really a blessing in disguise in a sense. It sucked to be sidelined, but that kind of got my attention up about the sport media career. And then I spent 4 years, 4 more years at TMU, and I played 2 years for the Ryerson Rams at that time. Then played a year professionally in the CWHL, which then folded, and I helped coach the women's team at TMU Ryerson for a season or two while I was doing all this juggling, trying to get myself in the career world, trying to still be attached to hockey. And yeah, then I worked a million different places, which I'm sure you've seen on my resume,
Yeah.
but I was just saying yes to everything and trying to figure out what it was about sport media because it's such a huge firm that I really liked. And I think the good thing is I like a lot of different facets of it. So it wasn't just like, I'm going to be a writer and I'm only going to focus on that. Or I want to be, a social media person. I'm only going to focus on that. Kind of worked in all of those areas. So it's a pretty fortunate story to now be here working at Sportsnet and hosting a daily television show across the country. But it wasn't the same path that everyone else is going to take. I think that's always important to say. It's like, sometimes things fall in your lap and I've been very fortunate and have worked really hard to get to this point. So that's kind of the background of it all.
I guess for you, how did you, with, being a professional athlete, like how much do you think that helped you just kind of getting a sense of how to talk to athletes, how to be in the sport media world? Like, how much do you think that helped you out?
Huge. 100%. I think it gave me a big leg up. Gave me a foot in the door as well because and I think a lot of times I speak to current students or people that have just graduated. It's like, how do I get a job? And for me, I definitely think being a high level athlete opened a lot of those opportunities to me because I knew the game. I was able to talk about it from a high level view, from an athlete perspective. I knew what an athlete would want to be interviewed like. I knew what it felt like to be interviewed by someone who's really well prepared and authentic and wanted to tell your story and wasn't just looking for a soundbite. And I think I learned a lot of the things that I appreciated as an athlete and tried to bring that into my career. And in terms of networking, there's really no better networking than being on a sports team and knowing people that work in the industry. And that's kind of how the whole Toronto Metropolitan University situation happened for me. So I knew somebody that knew somebody, and then when there was a job opportunity, and I knew somebody that said, "Hey, maybe you should apply to this." So it is a lot of networking, and I think I have a lot of that to thank for being an athlete because your community of teammates, their coaching staff, their hockey operations department, it is kind of like a little community. So I think in terms of how I do my job now, I think I learned a lot about what it was like when I was an athlete. And then in terms of getting opportunities, I think just being in the sporting world gave me a little bit more of a maybe a desirability to be hired because I knew the game, especially as a female. Like it's really difficult sometimes to get your foot in the door when everyone has the same resume and everyone's really hungry and eager. So I think by having, professional hockey player represented Team Canada, played NCAA Division One hockey and youth sports hockey, like those are some things that bring a lot to the table. And then you have to, live up to that. So I think it's a bit of both.
What's maybe been the challenge of being, a woman in such a male-dominated media industry and
Mm-hmm.
sports industry?
I felt a lot of imposter syndrome when I first got my big opportunity. So, I've worked in places, I live in Toronto now, and I've worked for Yahoo, I've worked for the Blue Jays, I've worked for the Maple Leafs, I've worked for TSN, I've worked for the Score, in all really amazing opportunities. But I think my first whoa moment of feeling a little bit, maybe like an outsider looking in, or feeling like that imposter syndrome was when I was first started at Sportsnet and I was hosting the morning show on Sports at 590. It's a pretty prestigious role. I had never done radio before. And, I think it was probably a bit of a surprise to hire somebody pretty young, pretty unexperienced in a radio role. And the people before me in that role, legends, like the people that have held opportunities to host a morning show in Toronto are really amazing,
Hmm.
talented people that have worked a really long time. So I think I just needed to believe that I had what it took. And I remember trying to, trying to maybe force myself to be, someone that I had previously had that role. Like, okay, well, this is the type of person they like, so I want to be this person. Whereas I was hired to be myself, bubbly, energetic, fun, also intellectual, and able to use my player perspective. And I think I was just feeling a little bit unsure of how to
Hmm.
voice those things all in the morning and feeling all this pressure. So um, I would say that there's a lot of really talented women, but I didn't see any really talented young women in this specific role. And I think it's all about visibility, right? So not having a lot of like female colleagues to be like, "Hey, you had this exact role. How can I learn from you?"
Hmm.
That was probably the most difficult part of it, but I think it's all about reps. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get, and the more you believe in yourself. So I think it's just like sports, if you're trying out for a new team or you're starting on the fourth line, you got to work your way up to it. So I definitely think some of my first shows on the morning show at 590, I was like, what did I get myself into? Like, am I ready for this? And now, I feel really confident with the body of work, but it's scary to put yourself out there and to give opinions and to give takes and to say, no, no, I don't agree with other co-hosts' thought. Like that can be really intimidating. So it was just about kind of like letting myself be me. And I think that's what people like when they listen to our show.
Was there a moment for you where you felt, okay, maybe the imposter syndrome has kind of worn off a little bit, or like, yeah.
Yeah, probably like being there for long enough. I can't think of an aha moment. And I do think I get it a lot still. Like, I'm really fortunate to be one of few women at Sportsnet
Hmm.
on the radio side, one of one. Um, in the actual building, there's a lot of really incredible women that hold different roles, but I definitely sometimes feel like I'm like, oh, I miss being on a team like of all women. Like there's sometimes
Hmm.
where, I miss being on a team where it's all women, but I look at that as an opportunity to be like, hey, when I talk to students that are just graduating, they're looking up to me or they're seeing me on TV and they're listening to me tell, stories about what it's like to be in this industry and to work really hard. So I don't know if there's an aha moment. I think it's more of an understanding that you can be first or second or third in this role. And there's so many more people to come. That's how I felt when I was playing professional hockey too. Is like, we were in a league that folded and it was like,
Yeah.
what's going to happen next with my career? But now I look at where the PWHL is and I'm like, those girls, maybe came to our games or maybe they're coming to these games and then they see what they can achieve. So um, it's like maybe ever changing. Sometimes I feel really great about it, and sometimes I feel where I'm looking around and saying, "Well, I want that job or I want that thing." But I think that's just the competitiveness in me, and
Yeah.
that's okay to have that.
I guess with both being a professional hockey player, but and obviously being a host of a radio show as, the only woman, at least for Sportsnet. Um,
Mhm.
I guess my question is in a sense, like how much of being in that role and being like almost a trailblazer, like how much does it weigh on you? How much do you
Mm.
notice that? How much do you think about that? And how much maybe do you get sick of thinking about it too? Because it shouldn't be a problem either.
Yeah, I guess it's like a double-edged sword. It is really inspiring for myself. I think it's a good perspective to the way you laid it out is sometimes I don't think about that. I just go into work and I do my best. But there's opportunities like, sometimes I'm at a PWHL game and somebody will come up to me like, "Oh, I saw you earlier today. I was watching your show or I was listening
Mm,
to you on the Leafs game." And when you get those moments to be like, "Wow, that's really great." And they're like, you're doing so great. Like, thank you, that is a really nice moment to reflect upon it. But, in my career, I've just been go, 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 like trying to get to the next level, trying to shoot for the next opportunity. And so you don't get a moment to slow down, right? It is kind of more when I'm not in the setting and I'm able to reflect, or I get a nice message from somebody, or I go and I speak at a school and people come up to me and say, like, I want to do what you do. Then I'm like, okay, that is rewarding. And this is supposed to be, it's not the most rewarding job in a sense of like my parents were teachers. They were every day impacting people's lives and they could really see like their ability to shape people. In my role, sometimes I'm just talking about best bets and why the Leafs should move, yard croak. And
yeah.
sometimes it's not like, yes, Ailish, you've changed my life. It's not always the
Mhm,
most meaningful, but
mhm.
it's sometimes those moments where you see that there's those junior reporters who are girls
Yeah.
and they want to be in that space, or you see women getting roles in completely different spaces of sports where you're like, yes, maybe I had a small factor of that. Or even if I didn't, I'm proud to be sharing a similar story. So it's a good reflection moment to think about, the people that are coming down the line and how maybe I can help them or how I already helped them and maybe I didn't know.
You talked about kind of not seeing anyone in that position, and obviously, like the P-Dub has been amazing the first
Mm-hmm.
few years. But how do you think seeing that maybe when you were coming up as a player, but also in the media world where you saw other Ailish Forfars as
Mm-hmm.
playing professional hockey or being, professional analysts or radio, like how do you think that would have changed your perspective of trying to kind of achieve your goals?
I think it's the most important way to kind of go through the highs and lows. There's a lot of girls, and not, I try to work so much with youth athletes now, whether it's at my old school or in the area, because I played boys hockey until high school because there was
Yeah.
no girls league to play
Mhm.
in, and luckily I was good enough to hang with the boys in AAA. But there was a lot of times where I was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, right? And then every 4 years I'd see the Olympics. I'm like, that's what I want to do. So to think about my upbringing where I didn't play with any girls and there was no girls league that was high level, and I had to wait every 4 years to see like Cassie Campbell and Jennifer Botterill on TV, and then say, oh, that's why I'm doing this. It's so different now. The accessibility is amazing for these young girls and boys to see, powerful women as athletes, as analysts, as hosts, as play-by-play people. Like there's so many spaces now that we get to occupy as women in sports, whether you're on or off the ice or the field. I just think that even if your goal isn't to be an Olympian, like it doesn't always have to be you have to win a gold medal. Maybe you just love hockey or soccer or
Mhm.
basketball and you just want to have role models to look up to. I think for me growing up, it was either the Olympics or bust, right? There was no in between until I learned about university. So now girls can just come to the PWHL game and say, I love hockey, and so does Natalie Spooner.
Yeah.
And I want to look like her. I want to play like her. It doesn't have to be, I need to win 3 gold medals. It can just be like, I'm enjoying playing the sport where I have friends and I see women are represented. So just think it makes a huge difference. We always say, like, if you can see it, you can be it. And I think that's so true in being an athlete and being in a role that's in a more male dominated space and being in the sporting industry. Like, I think that the visibility is probably the most important thing for young girls growing up.
How much credit do you take for Laura Stacey's career?
Probably all of it. That's so funny. So, I've been so fortunate. Laura's my best friend, and we met in going into our junior year of high school. We played 2 years together on the Toronto Arrows, and we played 4 years together at Dartmouth, and then we played another year together on the Markham Thunder in the CWHL. And we both got married this summer, one week apart from each other, and
Oh
we were each
wow.
other's.
Yeah.
yeah, we were each other's maid of honors, and we just we've had really an amazing, I guess, like decade or two of being line mates, which is really exciting to me. I've always been her centerman. She's the winger that, flying the zone, and I'm trying to catch up because she's so fast. But she's an amazing, amazing person on and off the ice, like just so driven. And it's so funny. Right beside, I don't know if you're filming this, but I have her jersey here because
Oh my God. You
it's
were at the
right here on
game.
my, yeah, I was at the game the other day and I've never had a Laura Stacey jersey because we've just been teammates. So I finally bought a Laura Stacey jersey and then she signed it for me. And she's like, should I write something? I'm like, I don't know, just sign it. Like it was so funny. I like out of body
That's funny.
experience for her to be signing a jersey for me. But
Yeah.
like that's just I'm so proud of
Hmm.
everything she's achieved. She's an Olympic gold medalist. She's, on the number one team in the PWHL. She's just driving so much success and she does so much charitable work in the off season. And yeah, she's just like the epitome of what somebody as a strong female role model should be. So I'll take 7% because that's her number. How about that?
There you
Of her
go.
success.
I need to ask you because this is my hot take about Laura Stacey. I feel like she has
Mhm.
the best shot in the P-dub.
If she hits the net,
Yeah.
yeah. She that was the
Sorry.
thing that pissed me off the most about Laura is she has an amazing shot, as you mentioned. But if she misses a net, the puck goes all the way around the boards down into her zone. I'm like, come on, Stace. Like, like hit the net. When she hits the net, it goes in. So she just got to
Yes.
worry about that. And she goes offside too much because her legs are so long, and I'm like 5 inches shorter than her. So imagine me hustling beside her and trying to enter the zone and she's offside. So we had a couple fights about that, but it's her needing to hit the net and stay inside. Other than that, she'd be a perfect player. So
There you
we can't
go.
all be winners.
There you go. I guess maybe to talk a bit about the PWHL this season,
Mhm.
like the Victoire have obviously been like the best team in the league
Mhm.
by far. What's it like being in Toronto and being a Montreal fan with the new league?
Well, I do say that I get the ability to be fans of both teams, all teams, but I'm a Toronto season ticket holder member from last year, so inaugural
Right.
season, got in there. So 2 times over season ticket holder. So I'm allowed to be a Toronto Septors fan.
Okay.
But I'm definitely a Montreal Victoire fan because, Stace and Pooh are two of my best friends. I grew up playing in the same area as Aaron Ambrose, so we're quite
Oh,
close. And so all of those networking opportunities, I've played with basically girls on every team and I'm
mhm.
friends with basically girls on every team. But when it's your best friend, you gotta put Victoire first. But they did play here the other night, the Scepters and the Victoire, and I was wearing my Stacey jersey, and Montreal lost.
I saw the
And
picture. Yeah.
yeah, some of the girls around me, we sit in the same seats because we're in season tickets. They're all Scepters fans, and I'm pretty sure I'm in Emma Maltese family section because
Oh,
it's
really?
always the Malte, like Malte chants, and I got a little bit of chirp. Whoa, you wear Victoria's jersey now, and I was like, I today's the day I wear that. But every other game, I wear my Toronto stuff proud. Honestly, I'm happy the league is being seen by people all over, and that it's been such a smashing success. But if there is a Montreal Scepters or a Victoria Scepters playoff series, it's Victoria all the way for me. I stated it on our show. Everyone's aware, but my second favorite team, very close, Scepters.
Do you think that Toronto has a chance just because it's not a best of seven, so they can't go up 3-1 and blow it? Do you think?
Yeah, I do actually. Thank you for reminding us of that. And the playoff thing is it really interesting? Last year obviously it didn't bode well for
Mhm.
many of the Canadian teams, really. Um, I still think it's a work in progress. These girls have even the girls in the national team, like they're headed over to Worlds soon. It's just like it's still a bit choppy in terms of the season. And if you're not a national team player, you're hanging out for a while. So I wonder one day, if the season gets moved up a little bit and is the start of like December, how this all looks. But I'm looking forward to seeing, I think, a redemption angle for both of those teams we mentioned that need to make something more of the postseason. But it was sweet to see Minnesota win the first ever Walter Cup, and Kendall Coyne-Schofield's been such a like great leader of this league. So I think I'll be happy having a Canadian team in the final. Let's just stay with
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
got a lot of girls that are on the charge that I'm close with,
yeah.
like Ottawa. Like,
Who are you friends with on the charge? Because
oh
I
God,
covered that team
like,
mostly
oh,
last
I could get you some
year.
connections. I'm gonna see their
Like
roster because
Clarky or
oh yeah, I know Clarky really well.
Matt?
Um, I know. Oh yeah. So Mash is awesome. Who else is on your team?
Uh,
I should know
I'm
this,
trying to,
but
well, we got Jocelyn Larocque. Uh,
oh yeah, Jocelyn. Oh, here I got the. So Victoria Bach was one of my best friends on Markham Thunder. Brienne Jenner, we know each other through Stace mostly, but Emily Clark and I are close. Who else do I know on your team? Oh, Joss LaRock, yeah, as you mentioned, I played with her on the Markham Thunder. Mash, she's good friends with Pooh and Stace, so I've become friends for her. But yeah, I think out of all those guys, those would be the ones I would know the best. But Bach, good trade for Bach. I think it made sense for her to get more
she's so
opportunity with the
fast.
charge.
Yeah.
She is. Her and I were both rookies during the Markham Thunder year. She won Rookie of the Year. I was like, not for me. Oh, I also know Haley Irwin, your assistant coach, really well
Yeah. I've
through the
worked with her.
Toronto area. She's great, and Carla McLeod as well, head coach.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think I could go through every roster, and be like, oh, played with her, know her.
Yeah.
It's just that's why it's so exciting to me, just to watch the girls that I know like living out their dream and
Mhm.
me getting to support it. So it's such a blast.
I remember talking to the women last year and just like how tough it was just to train, and I'm sure you dealt with that and
Hmm.
find ice time and players at your level and everything like. And it feels like this year, just watching it as a
Hmm.
mostly as a fan, it feels like the league's just gone up in terms of quality. Like, how do you think just having consistent games against the best players in the world
Hmm.
really, in 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now, we'll see like the league, like not that it's bad by any means now, but
Oh,
those.
it's going to be so good. Like that's why I think expansion has to happen soon because there's girls that are going to graduate from the NCAA or U Sports and they're not even going to have a roster spot because there's only six teams. In terms of the quality play, this jump from year one to year two was pretty outstanding just because this is their job now. But when I was playing pro for the CPWHL, I was a full-time student. I was helping be an assistant coach for the women's team at Ryerson. I was working a full-time job at Yahoo Sports, like as a like host and writer and like doing all that. And I was a pro hockey player. Like it doesn't work. Like you can't be fully
Yeah.
invested in one thing because there's not enough hours in the day. But now they have the ability to train full time, to be treated properly with physio, with nutrition, with travel. Like it is a night and day difference being able to just sleep at a hotel the night before a game and not travel the day of, and to get the proper, just like do care of your body. None of that was really a focus, or it was a focus, but it wasn't a possibility for a lot of people. I would walk into the locker room on the Thunder, and there'd be people finishing like a night shift as a nurse or as a firefighter who's just on for 48 hours. And you're just like, oh yeah, you're gonna play well tonight. Like
Yeah.
it just wasn't gonna happen.
Mm.
So this is what it feels like the bare minimum of what being a pro hockey player should be. And I think that they're pushing for more. And they have the ability to have like maternity leave and health insurance. So things that you would want as a professional athlete, I think they have fought for and they've been able to get most of the things that they've looked for. And it's only going to get better. And the league is only going to get better because when you come at NCAA or U Sports, like you're at the pinnacle of your sport. You're feeling like you're in great shape. You've just been playing hockey 5 days, 6 days, 7 days a week. You're probably in a gym with like a $2 billion endowment every day. Like your life is amazing. And so you want to walk into a setting where you're a pro athlete, where you're getting some of that, and then you can continue to be at your best. So the girls coming out of college, like they are coming from a situation, most of them, where they are being treated like the best athletes at their school. And to come into pro hockey right away, I think they'll have a big step on some of the people that, if I try to get back into it, there's no chance.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think the league's taken off? Like, obviously, there's been multiple different iterations of different leagues,
Mm.
and obviously, there were two at a certain point, and
Hmm.
obviously, they merged. But why do you think this league finally was the one that really seems to have taken off?
I think money. Like, I really think like the idea, the players, the passion has always been there. But I would say the huge investment from the Walter family and Billie Jean King, and Stan Casson, like you needed to put like your money where your mouth is and say, we will fund this league, we will make this dream happen. And I think a lot of people shy away from investing in women's sports, and we see that across like the soccer leagues, the WNBA, because it's not immediately profitable like you would see in a male profession yet. Like it's still growing, but when I go to the rink and it is sold out every single night, and you're selling out the Scotiabank Arena, and you're selling out the Bell Center, and you're seeing young boys, young girls, families, people coming in, like there has always been that interest in women's sports, but I think being able to put the money and to create the right facilities and to create the right living environments for the girls and to be able to put the best product on the ice. This is way better of a product than when I was playing professionally. Like, as I stated, there's so many reasons why. So I think having money and believing in the fans to come and the money to come was step one. And I think visibility, like last year was an amazing experience where TSN, Sportsnet, and CBC shared something. Like we usually share things, it's a very
Mhm.
competitive industry. And we were sharing the rights. So people could watch PWHL games basically always, anywhere. And then YouTube was streaming them for free. And you're able to pick them up. They had really cool engagements with like Twitch and streaming services where people who might not have regular cable could watch games. And I even saw, viewing parties at bars and restaurants. Like it was all up in your face. Like you could
Yeah.
not miss a PWHL opportunity. They really put a lot of money into sponsorships. I remember I followed obviously the PWHL
Mhm.
account, and it was just like every
Yeah.
day, new
I
sponsor, new
know.
sponsor, new sponsor. I'm like, what are you guys sponsoring? Doesn't matter. We'll take the money because it's going to help this thing grow and eyeballs on it. So just from the amount of in your face availability, it became, I had friends that, either at work that are just like, yo, I watched this PWHL game last night. It was amazing. I'm like, I agree. And to hear that they just saw it on their television and thought that they would watch it, like that's how you create fans. That's how you create buzz about it. And last year, the inaugural season couldn't have gone any better. I was anxiously anticipating how this year would go because it's so easy to buy into things when it's the first opportunity. We'll be the first big sponsor. We'll be the first people to go to the game. I want to buy the first this. I want to see the first that. But when it's a year old, are you still showing up? Are you still bringing that same energy? And for me, I've seen it like in spades. We had to get to a bigger rink in Toronto. Every single game, people are reselling tickets like it's like a Leafs game. Like, it's hard to get tickets. So I think it's been a smashing success because there's money behind it and the visibility. You can't ignore it. I used to play in a rink that only had seating on one side
Mm.
up in Markham, and nobody would come because it was like nobody really knew about it. Nobody really cared. And we didn't really have reporters there, and it was never on TV. And, the only people that would come to our games were students who had to do interviews about pro athletes. And this was the only accessibility they had. And
Mm.
this is a billion
Yeah.
times more professional, and it makes the players feel like they are legitimately playing as pro athletes. And when you go to a game, it's a professional setting. There's in arena game ops, like there's people that are like making the experience worth your dollar. And I think that that's been a few of the main reasons why season two has just been as good as season one.
What do you think the league needs to do to like, keep the good time rolling and even improve in terms of
Mm-hmm.
visibility, tickets, everything?
Yeah, I think the Canadian markets are doing really well.
Yeah.
I think some of the American markets are struggling for attendance. That's probably a couple of reasons. Like the Boston arena isn't in Boston. I have a lot of friends in Boston. Dartmouth, where I went to school, is just outside of Boston, basically. And so I have a lot of friends that have ended up in Boston. And I talk to them all the time because they want to be going to Fleet games, but it's about an hour commute for them who live in Boston. And I know it's difficult. There's a lot of rinks in Boston, but can you make one that's your own, that's a bit more accessible? If they play at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, like people can't go. It's an hour commute after work and in traffic. So I think Boston has struggled a little bit with that. I know New York has had that same issue. They're basically playing in Connecticut last year, and then they picked a new rink. So a little bit like start and stop in a sense.
Yeah.
And Minnesota has great fan base, but they play at the Xcel Energy Center, which is like a huge arena. So sometimes it feels empty. So I think there's a little bit of logistics to work through. I would say Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa are killing it. Sellouts almost every night. And the fan base is like super, super hungry to see them. It's hard to speak on behalf of the American fan bases when I haven't been to any of those three rinks, but my friends that live in both Minnesota and Boston and even New York say that it's really hard sometimes to get there. Um, I would say that I don't know if that's a possibility thing to look into to have a little bit more accessibility. I think that's step one. I think the schedule has been a bit tricky at times. I
Mhm.
forget when it was earlier this season, but even with like the first week, like they started and then it was like the games weren't in a regular rhythm. There
Yeah.
was there was like a week where there's nobody playing, and then there was a week where one team went like 12 days without playing. And I was like, how are you building momentum when it isn't as structured as I know the Leafs play every Saturday night. I know that they probably Tuesday and Thursday. Like, you can just
Mhm.
follow into a bit of a rhythm. These are growing pains. Like there's going to be things that happen with a brand new league. You're still trying to get ice times. You're still trying to get into the flow of how do we have these six teams working in terms of travel and scheduling. Um, Pushing the season to start earlier, I think is important. It'll get there. Obviously, they're working backwards from when they had to launch on January 1st last year. And then having a bit more of a rhythm of knowing what nights are PWHL nights, how can I watch my team, how can I get there and make it as easy as possible. And I think it's all going to work out. Like this is year two, but to only have a couple things that you can really pick on is probably a really good sign. The jerseys, the names have been amazing. I think it was a great plan to actually wait a year to launch it properly. So I have no complaints. I have a lot of merch. I've spent a lot of money on merch, so I'm helping fund this league in terms of merch. But other than that, just like knowing what nights I can watch my team and easier to get to some of the places in the United States, I think would probably make a huge difference.
My last question on the PW, where do you want
Mhm.
expansion to? What cities do you want to see the PW expand to?
Well, that's a good question. So last year I got to go to the Takeover series in Detroit, and it was amazing.
Yep.
I think that would be an amazing city. Michigan's obviously a huge hockey state city. Everything around Detroit is like very hockey. And I think partnering with a place that has an NHL team makes a lot of sense. So I like Detroit, and I would like to see them go to Calgary.
Okay.
Calgary's got a really
Inferno,
passionate
baby.
hockey fan base. The Inferno, yes, rest in peace, Inferno. But I think those are two cities. However, I've talked to a lot of girls on the teams, obviously, and they loved going to Seattle and Vancouver. So I
Yeah.
would say Seattle and Vancouver, sleeper potential next two expansion spots because the girls speak really highly about it. And if you put a team in Seattle and Vancouver, easy for your road trip, right? Like you can't be like, oh, we're gonna fly once to Seattle and there's nowhere else to play. So
Yeah.
they both of those markets, Seattle and Vancouver, were really, really highly talked about by the girls I've talked to. It makes sense. It is far, but if you're over there, you play each other, whatever. I did go to China one year in the
Yeah.
CWHL, so we had a team in China. So I think we can make it work if it's Vancouver. But yeah, I think there's a lot of great markets. The first two that came to my mind were Detroit and Calgary, and then I think Vancouver and Seattle make sense as two
Do,
teams together.
do you feel like there needs to be another team in Canada? Like it just feels like there has to be another one.
Yeah, I think so. I do think so. It's been a success, been more successful than the American markets, and you could kind of lean into that CWHL market as well. And I think it'd be fair to have them, 3-3, 4-4, 5-5. But if you had to pick one, and obviously as a Canadian, I want more Canadian teams.
Yeah.
We need to bring a cup home to Canada somewhere,
There
okay?
you go. That's the perfect segue to the Leafs. Thank
Oh
you so
boy.
much, Ailish. I will, I don't want to end our PWHL conversation, but I feel like
This is
I should
good.
at least ask you a little bit about the Leafs
Of
before I let you
course.
go.
Of course.
I feel like every time I have someone who covers the team or not covers the team, but like in the Toronto kind of media sphere,
Hmm.
it's like, is this the year? And then there's trade rumors and Mitch Marner and oh my God, what's happening? But how different or similar do you feel like this team is from the prior iterations of the Leafs that have obviously, as you know, not done so well in the playoffs?
I think there's a couple areas where I feel more confident about the Leafs. Like if I'm thinking, is this the year? It's hard to say that actually post trade deadline. I just look at what teams did around the league, and not that the Leafs didn't do anything. I just think that other teams did a little bit more. But however, I do feel way more confident in our goaltending tandem of Woll and Stolars than I have in previous iterations. Like goaltending has been a bit of an Achilles heel, a bit of an area of improvement every single season, and these two are working really well together. They're kind of pushing each other for that number one spot. They've both never been number one goalies, so it's kind of an interesting, I guess, like relationship for them. But they're working really, really well together. So I think goaltending wise, I feel really, really confident going into a series where they'll be able to steal games, which hasn't always been the way that Leafs fans have looked at it. In terms of the core four is the same core four. Mitch Marner's having an amazing season. He's probably the MVP of the Leafs so far. So that's a huge win. You look at Austin Matthews, maybe not having his Austin Matthews season. I still think Austin Matthews is one of the best hockey players in the world. William Nylander, wonderful season. John Tavares, amazing season. Like they're all really, really good. It's very top heavy, as we know with Maple Leafs. So put those in like the maybe the same category. In terms of defensemen, I am obsessed with the pairing of McCabe and Tanev. That's something we've never had as a real shutdown. Like you can't get past these guys, defensive defensemen. And so I feel like that's a huge uptick in the positivity column going into the postseason that the Leafs have never really had. So overall, probably feel better about this team than I did years before, but I don't love the fact that the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers decided that this is also their year to push their chips in. And you look at what the West did with Colorado and Dallas, like you're like, okay, are we going to beat those guys? So it's hard, it's the playoffs. Anything can happen, but I do think the Leafs set themselves up to have a better opportunity at success this year. But it's the Maple Leafs. Famous last words, right? Is this is our year? I don't know if it's our year. I do think that they've pretty much improved in all areas, whether that's 1, 2, 5%. Other teams around them have also improved. And so we'll see in the off seasons, huge questions, obviously, with Marner and Tavares and what's going to happen there. But I think we just need to focus on what happens in the playoffs first, because at that point, if who knows what's going to happen with the pending free agents. But it's been a hot topic here.
Does it feel almost like this is finally the year that Mitch Marner is going to maybe succeed in the playoffs after the Four Nations and everything, and then he leaves? Like
Yeah,
it's
I know, right? Like I remember watching his Four Nations, like he has the OT winner, and then he sets up, he gets 2 assists in the gold medal game, sets up the golden goal, and I was like, this is so good. Like Marner's going to believe in himself. He's going to come out and he's going to be like, let's go. And he was like, he has had a really good stretch. But then this whole past week has been talking about obviously the contract discussions and how he was asked to waive his no move clause, and like, oh, we're right back into the thick of things, right? I think that Mitch Marner loves being a Maple Leaf. I think that he takes probably so much pride in a guy from the area, grew up being a Leafs
yep.
fan, and um, but I think it's going to be dependent on what happens this postseason, like for both sides of it, and how much money he wants to make. If he wants to go be like the highest paid player in the NHL, it might not be with the Leafs. So it's kind of like, what's more important to you? Playing for the Leafs, being a guy from the area, and like sinking your teeth into that and being really beloved here in the city if you take a little bit of a discount, or do you want to go make a lot more money to play for Chicago or St. Or Columbus? Like I can't fault anyone for those decisions. It's really going to be up to Mitch when it comes down to it. And it'd be nicer to be making that decision with some playoff success where we're like, yeah, we need Mitch Marner to stay. So hard to make that. It's so hard to make that call now. I could not tell you how it's going to go.
Okay. Well, I as someone who covers the Sens for network, I just hope it's a Battle of Ontario just for our
I
network.
would love
It'd be
that
awesome.
big time. And I don't think the Leafs would probably win it. I'll say that.
I
Like, I
I
think
know.
it would be really successful for the Sens people. So I'm not surprised that you're into it too. I think it'd just be so much fun if you had a battle of Florida and a battle of Ontario, and like just the opportunity to see just some new rivalries form. I think it would be haunting for the Leafs fans, but it'd be great for the Via Rail. People would just be zipping back and forth. It'd be like this playoff series sponsored by the Via Rail. But I would love it. I'm looking forward to. I just want to see somebody different. I
Yeah.
can't be another Tampa, Florida, Boston. Boston's gone, but
My
basically
God.
not folded their franchise. But yeah, I'd be into that too. I think it'd be really fun.
How worried are you about Brad Marchand and
I'm very worried.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was the most shocking thing of the whole trade deadline, of course, for everybody. And we were live doing it on Sportsnet 360 and Sportsnet 590. And I've got Elliot's tweet notifications on, and all I see is Elliot Freeman being like, last minute possibility that Brad Marchand could be a Florida Panther. And I was like, what? What world is what's happening? And then I just thought about, oh, so nice the Leafs get to avoid Boston this year, like just feeling a bit more positivity. And then they bring Brad Marchand to a team that they're probably going to face in round one or round two. And I'm like, we just can't escape this. But I think it'll be fun. Like tonight, I don't know when you're posting the podcast, but tonight the Bruins and the Panthers are playing, which is a Tuesday, March 11th. So it's going to be, he's obviously not playing, but even just seeing videos of him skating at TD Garden in a Panthers
So
uniform
weird.
today was crazy to me. But you know what? Like, power to him. He tried to make it work and they didn't. And he said, screw it, I'm out. And I'm like, I kind of respect, I kind of respect it. I
Yep.
wouldn't love it if it was my team, but if he goes and wins a cup with Florida, I think it'd be an amazing villain story. Like he's like WWE, not a big
Mhm.
wrestle guy, but like he could
Yeah.
be a big time heel. So, you know what? I just like when there's good stories and fun stories and crazy stories in the NHL, and I think that's kind of all built into one.
Well, I hope the Leafs go deep in the playoffs just because I actually, even though I'm from Ottawa and born and raised, I do find it fun. Just the whole journey, whether they win or lose, it's always exciting. I will
Yes,
say,
everybody likes to make fun of us. It's fine.
yes, yes, I'll hold back for now. Before I let you go, is there anything that you want to kind of plug from your show or
Oh
anything
boy.
upcoming that?
No, nothing to plug. Every day you can listen to Justin Cuthbert and I. We're on 6 p.m. on 6 p.m. Eastern across Sportsnet, usually up on television for the full hour or Sportsnet 360, and then our shows on Sportsnet 590 Fan. And then anyone that's listening to Leafs games, when we have Sportsnet games on the radio, Justin and I will do the intermissions and the post game and pre game show as well. So that's it. My social media is just my name, Ailish Forfar. I gotta post more. I'm gonna try to be more into it. Sometimes I just need like a cleanse, like a break from it. But I'm ready to get back into posting more and sharing more of our sports fandom on it. So yeah, and also if anyone's listening, like, because I'm sure you have people that listen that are in similar careers or like are starting their careers. I'm always happy to help like mentor or bounce ideas off if people want to get in the industry or have any questions about the industry or just want to talk sports. Like, I'm always open to that, so they can feel free to message me as well, because it's nice to just chat and not be like, someone in your ear be like, commercial in 3, 2, 1. You're just like, it's just nice to chat. So yes, that's what I'll plug.
Well,
Available to help.
this was a great chat, Ailish. I really love your work, and it's so
Thank
cool.
you.
I remember you were like my pandemic cleanse with the A-list and everything,
Yeah,
and
that was good. I want to bring that back. So if you like the A-list, I might have to bring it
I
back.
loved it. So you,
Yeah, it
JD,
was
and,
good.
and Blake. So yeah, so I
It
really
was fun.
appreciate you coming on. Been a big fan for a long time, and thanks
Thank
so much.
you. Of course, I'm glad to be a part of it, and you keep killing it too. We're colleagues, so happy to help.
There you go. Well, thank you so much, Ailish. Have a
Of
great day,
course,
and
thank you.
good luck with the rest of the year and maybe a Leafs playoff run. We'll see.
If there is a Leafs Sens playoff round, we'll have to do we'll do some chatting for sure, do some
There,
content.
there you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.